One of my goals has always been to bring science and the paranormal together. Paranormal is just science undiscovered or misunderstood.
Every time I keep asking how good can it get, this prompts the participatory universe to provide us with answers that we genuinely do want to live the answer to.
Hello, my name is Christopher Anatra. You know me as the quantum businessman.
And I say, you know what? I don't need to know where I'm headed. I thought I knew where I was headed before and I didn't end up there. So why worry about where I'm headed? Why not just accept this now moment, trust that whatever guided me here with you guys that I feel is divine is going to continue to guide me.
The content you are about to watch is meant for thought and consideration. Please be respectful of each other and opinions shared. This is a safe place to express thoughts, ideas, and information. Please note that no copyright infringement is intended with regards to inclusion of short excerpts of material that are included in accordance with fair use under Section 107 of the Copyright Act. IMEC, or International Mandela Effect Conference, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization designed to support ongoing Mandela Effect research. To learn more about IMEC, please go to imec.world.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the International Mandela Effect Conference Open Tables for July. Ladies and gentlemen, we're glad to have everybody here with us as Season 4, Episode 6. I am Jerry Hicks, once again, also known as the Dark Wolf. And we've got a heck of a show for you guys. But first, I need to bring on an incredible team, folks. I have with me today Miss Cynthia Sue Larson of RealityShifters.com.
Hello. Good to see you. So surprised to see you and so glad you're here.
Right. Yeah, I almost wasn't. We'll get to that here in just a moment. Also, we have Mr. Christopher Anatra. You know him as the quantum businessman. There he is. How you doing, Chris?
Doing good. All this energy on the planet. Woo! But doing good.
Lots and lots indeed. Glad to see you, my friend. And last but not least, the one, the only Shane Robinson of Unbiased and On the Fence. How you doing, Bubba?
I'm doing wonderful. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here with us, sir. And together, of course, we are the International Mandela Effect Conference, and we got a show for you guys today. We've got a good show. 2 or more Foo Fighters.
The title makes me laugh every time.
Oh, wow. So what have we here, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go through our agenda real quick and see what the 2 or more Foo Fighters episode will be about. We've got the board member updates first and foremost. We're going to go through and tell you how our particular months have been. Then we're going to have 2 or something. Then we'll talk about human upgrades, a brand new organ, or a change of heart, or some amazing brains. And then we're going to switch topics, ladies and gentlemen, at number 6 over to the Foo Fighters mystery. Has it really been solved, folks? Are we in a reality where that question is no longer a question? We'll find out shortly. Lazarus species back from extinction. Oh, you guys know I've got a soft spot in my heart for those Lazarus species. And then we've got the wild white buffalo born in Yellowstone. If you've been living under a rock, maybe you haven't heard about this white buffalo, but this is bigger than any of the other white animals we've ever covered on this show. This is gargantuan, folks, and it goes right to the golden timeline. We've spoken of it so much more. And last but not least, the mailbag and Q&A. So do be ready to throw the questions you have in the chat. We do have people monitoring the chat, so if you have a question throughout, just preface it with question, and we'll definitely hold it to the very end, unless I get a wild hair and really like it. So, and ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and do the board member updates. Cynthia, how has your month been?
Oh, it's been great so far. Last month I didn't get to talk about that update, but I went to Crestone, Colorado, had a great oneness conference, sort of a weekend retreat with Paula Harris and Jeff Mahala, and it was amazing with some some CE5 activities, and really, really refreshing. But then this month I finally have brought into being paperback and hardcover and the ebook versions of the Mandela Effect and its society. Woo! It's out. It's here. So that's exciting. And the audiobook will be coming later this year, hopefully. And people have been writing and requesting that I please make sure to do that, and I will. So I haven't started yet, but that'll be next. So that's my big news, the biggest so far. And
And
IMEC
the subtitle on that is Awakening from ME to WE, from me to we.
Yes, yes. Now this is a definite play on words, a double entendre, maybe a triple entendre, because the idea is we're moving from a Mandela effect that might be very personal, maybe just to have personal Mandela effects primarily as the thing that wakens people up and gets them into gear. But eventually we start noticing we're changing reality collectively. The book cover itself, Chris was asking about this, like, is there significance to that cover?
Yeah. What are those two like stones that you're holding? Explain that.
Yeah, these are crystal balls. It's a real photograph. That's my hand. I'm holding two crystal spheres, and they represent an idea of the Wigner bubble, which is a term and a phrase honoring Eric Cavalcanti. I've got an illustration I'm showing in the book. This is a hardcover edition that has color illustrations, and it shows basically one physicist saying that Schrodinger's cat is alive, and the other one says it's dead. And that's what these bubbles, these truth bubbles, reality bubbles, or perhaps most accurately, Wigner bubbles. It's really about the idea that we can have two different realities operating side by side. We can move between them. You can experience reality shifts. You can walk from one reality where the back door is locked into one where the back door is miraculously in the locked position but slides open, like what happened when I was in Colorado. So these are the kind of things you can play with when you start timeline jumping. We can experience it with Mandela effects. And so that's the heart and soul of the book, is going through the science, the sociology, the philosophy, the history, my personal experiences, and much, much more with the Mandela effect. I think any book about the Mandela effect is a personal book, but I do my best to bring in the physics as well and cover some of the theories. So yeah, that's a big piece of it, this whole idea.
Well, that is huge news, and I would definitely encourage everyone to go out and get a copy of this book. I have read it, not gonna lie. It's an amazing, amazing book. I think it's full of great information. I think all of you guys would definitely benefit from having this in your library. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Anything else you would like to add from your newsletter, or?
Oh yeah, the newsletter is always packed, but I don't know. I guess you can check it out. There is something interesting. I did a video on YouTube and I put that in the newsletter. And this one is about reclaiming reality shifting. So I did, the video looks like that. And basically I'm responding to the whole TikTok trend where not so much the trend itself, but there was a particular YouTuber who was saying that people on TikTok are crazy and they're trying to go to Hogwarts, and then poo-pooing the whole reality shifting thing. So basically, I'm doing my best to show that that there is a reality to reality shifting. It is quite real, and so I'm trying to remember what I said in this video. Such a big topic, but reality shifting is it's kind of like daydreaming and exploring. The TikTokers are doing certain techniques. They have, what do you call it? The starfish. They have like a technique called the starfish and so forth. But they're doing the same things that shaman for millennia have been doing. They're just bringing it current and taking an ancient technology that any of us can employ to do timeline jumping, which what I'm referring to now is just bringing in techniques that busy the left brain by counting backwards from 100, or anything that you want to do to keep your left brain busy and occupied while you're focusing with, I would say, an alignment with what all of your levels of conscious agency with an intention that you're going to walk into a new reality. Personally, I wouldn't choose Hogwarts. That's just a personal thing. But during the pandemic, teenagers were doing a Hogwarts reality shifting technique in order to, get out of the house when there's a lockdown in place. So anyway, it's an interesting topic. So
Definitely a fascinating topic for sure. I don't know. I was going to say I want to go to Hogwarts, but now that you mentioned it, that was a pretty dangerous area. But fascinating information. And I've said it before. The Asians call it meditation. The Christians call it prayer. The New Agers call it manifestation. They're all saying the same thing. We're calling it reality jumping. It's whatever you want to call it. It's like you said, an ancient technology that we have a spiritual access to, more so than a physical technology, right?
Well, it's quite physical, but often people don't recognize it. It's certainly not been officially recognized by.
Well, I'm saying it's a spiritual technology as far as like how you do it, opposed to typing into a phone. I want to go to right, like reality 75, right? Like
right. So far,
because when people hear technology, they think tech. They don't, I'm not in terms of spirit tech, if you will.
That's a really good differentiation because it gets into the whole, rev humanism versus transhumanism. Because some people want to have a procedural technique, punch in buttons and get the reality they want without putting any effort in.
Right.
I think that's going to be a sort of a painting in the corner approach. I don't think that goes anywhere good.
That's going to be really interesting when it comes to these neural links and see how that affects this. But only time will tell on that. Ladies and gentlemen, Cynthia Sue Larson of Reality Shifters. Next up, folks, we have an update from Mr. Christopher Anatra of you know him as the Quantum Businessman. Chris, how has your month been? Have you got new symphonies out, sir? What's going on with you?
No, I'm planning my next symphony. It's still like in the planning stages, and I find edits from different movie clips and so forth that I put into it. So it's like it becomes a big production. So I'm still working on it. It's called Mechanics of the Matrix is what it's going to be called. Yeah, Act 11. So I'm working on that. I also just came from an amazing 3-day conference outside of Seattle. It was on this island called Bainbridge Island. And at the conference, it was focusing on frequency work. And frequency work meaning the person that was conducting it helps you remove distortions out of your frequency. So distortions can be anything that triggers you. Low self-esteem could be a distortion. Jealousy could be a distortion. All these things are distortions that affect you and how you see the world, how you manifest and so forth. And also how people see you, even though they don't realize it. And what was interesting is that there were some people at the conference that were removing so many distortions so quickly, their frequency was going up so much, where one woman was talking about how she couldn't feel her arms or see her arms anymore, which is like something interesting. I wanted to mention this because if any of you guys out there are listening to this and you get this type of phenomenon happen, it's all good. But basically, the way the reality works, the way I see it, and I'll talk about this more in my Symphony of Realities, is that almost like Da Vinci's Virtuosan Man, all around you is your spirit body, and your DNA is like a fractal antenna, and it's creating your avatar. And if you were to slow things down to the zeptosecond, which is a zillionth of a trillionth of a second, it's almost like you go into the transporter on Star Trek. You know how the old Star Trek, it would phase in and out as you're going to be beamed from one location to another. So what happens is your higher self or your eternal self, your pure source connection, however you want to say it, starts to reorganize you. And so when you start to get reorganized, like things may not, in the reality, things may shift, including on your own avatar, and they'll come right back again. So keep that in mind. And for anyone that's interested, this whole frequency work concept is something that I've been doing and working on a lot. And it's really dramatic because we have all these things that we have that like events that somebody could say something and it triggers us, and we wonder why that triggers us. So that's a distortion. And a lot of those are not even from us. It's from our ancestry, because our DNA is a history of all of our ancestry of who we've been. So you start clearing out these distortions, and then your frequency can really start to rise. So that was a great experience. And now I'm going to be able to focus more on my mechanics of the matrix to kind of explain how I see the reality working, from my knowingness and my point of view. So I think everybody will enjoy that one when it's out.
Excellent, Chris. Have you done any traveling?
Well, yeah, West Coast, Seattle. Yeah, I've been traveling Canada. I've been traveling all over the place. So I think there's going to be a little bit a break of my traveling, but just a little break. But yeah, continuing to travel.
Excellent. All right. Appreciate that update, Chris, as always. Next up, we have Mr. Shane Robinson. You know him as Unbiased and On the Fence. How you doing, Shane?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, man. So this last month has been awesome. A lot of great one-on-one sessions with people. A lot of people awakening to their larger purpose and their journey, and a lot of people going through the same things with sort of feeling inadequate. But it's funny how you can watch these trends going around. So if you're feeling inadequate or anything like that, just know it's just sort of in the field right now, and to just really have faith in who you are and that how God can it get, like Cynthia says, how good can it get? I like to just keep in mind that you're never alone, and you've always got a whole higher entourage of help that's always helping you and guiding you and leading you. So just have faith in that. And so that's really all I have as far as personal updates. But the highlight of my month has been Cynthia's book coming out, because I've been revisiting that and going through it again, and it's so refreshing. I think it's really a book for anybody that's Mandela affected, because it does such a great job at covering the simple things in a simple way, but then really incorporating the science and everything in a way that we can all understand it. Well, I had to Google a few terms here and there or whatever, but it's got a nice balance between simple and tying it in with the whole left and right brain thing, because I think that's really difficult to do whenever you're discussing the Mandela effect, because you can't decode it with just the left brain. You have to go into your right brain. So I love the fact that Cynthia brings a really nice balance between that, as well as discussing so many different views within the community. So it's a great resource. I even loved all the terms and things that you put in there. So anybody who's like really new to this, you'll understand what people are talking about, because she goes through all of the terms you might hear as you're sort of investigating this, because it's an exciting topic and so many people talk about it, and there's so many terms that were created just because of the Mandela effect. And so it's really helpful to get a foundational understanding of like just how to understand people that's discussing the Mandela effect. It's a must have. So I'm loving it, and it's really been a highlight, and I appreciate you really putting that out, Cynthia. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
What about you, Jerry? What have you been up to?
I appreciate it, Shane. So I think it's funny you said foundational, because the whole time I'm sitting here thinking it's definitely a great foundational piece for anybody new to the Mandela effect. 100%. It's a great place to start. It plainly explains everything. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I am, of course, Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. I can be found every Wednesday and Thursday night over on the rippinrabbithole.com. We've got that link over in the chat here on YouTube. I do 2 politically motivated shows. I can't get too much deeper into that here. They are We the People Wednesday, where we open up the lines and the discussion to every one of you. You always hear from the host. The host this time wants to hear what you have to think on the air live. So that's every Wednesday night, We the People Wednesday. And then we go to Freedom Report News on Thursday, where we go through the news stories of the week, those that are important to us. So that's about the most I can say on that here. But ladies and gentlemen, do check out the rippinrabbithole.com for more information. Go America. That's right. I love it. July 4th is coming up. That's right. RIPONRABBITHOLE.com, rippinrabbithole.com. I've been pretty good, Shane. Been working a whole lot, man, doing just the daily grind. I've got a lot going on in that arena, a lot of changes in my work life, positive changes nonetheless. I thought I wasn't going to be here today. It's actually a surprise and a welcome surprise that I'm able to be here today. Huge shout out to the Boom crew of East Nashville. But I was supposed to work today. I spoke to my boss and explained to them that we had this charitable event and that, so much going on. I'm supposed to be off on Wednesdays anyway. So they were kind enough to grant me the day off. So I was able to be here with you guys, which is absolutely amazing to me. I love it. Cynthia was quite worried.
Grateful. I'm thankful that you're here. I do my best to fill in, but there's nobody that can replace Jerry. So one of a
I
kind.
appreciate you guys. And each of you, I could say the same for. But I know one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I am excited to be here not only with this incredible team of my greatest friends, I gotta say, but with all of you guys out there in YouTube land and out there in whatever reality number you may find yourself in today. And if there's more than one of you, well, maybe you'll be interested in this first slide we have here, ladies and gentlemen, coming from Matthew 18 and 20, I believe. Yes, where two or blank are gathered. Now, I know the scripture. I'm pretty sure I know the scripture. I'm pretty sure that the scripture that I remember
Let's put it in the chat, you guys.
Yeah, put it in the chat. Yeah, good idea.
Okay, I won't say it just yet. So, Cynthia, you put this together. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this one came up. I was recently staying with friends in Colorado near Boulder, and the gentleman of the house, the man of the house, was saying, "Cynthia, could you help me out?" And I said, "What do you need?" And he said, "My wife, she's really new to the Mandela Effect. She's not a disbeliever, but she doesn't really know why people are so excited about it. What's the deal?" So I'm laughing just thinking about it. So I said, "Well, there's this great passage in the Bible. What do you remember? When two or blank of you are gathered, what do you remember?" And I couldn't really say it without laughing, because when I came to say what the answer is, which I'm about to say, looks like we're getting a lot of people saying what I remember. So when people are saying, "That's okay," now I can blurt it out.
And I think Rose already knew the answer to this.
I think so too.
Yeah. Okay. It's now the Bible says when two or three are gathered, and every time I would say that to her, her jaw would drop, like, "What?" And then I would just laugh so hard because it's hilarious.
It sounds hilarious. Yeah,
it is, because it means if it was always when two or three are gathered, then wouldn't you expect there should be some churches that have, congregation of three? We have three of us. We're ready to,
or at least 3-person pews, right?
3-person pews,
right?
Like micro churches, like a mini church down the street. Like they have the little free book place and a little free church. For three.
So, for those that are wondering, yes, I do, and Cynthia agrees, do remember being more. Brooke Michelle, Greenheart, Autumn Guild, Melinda Iverson, and B. Farrell all agreed that it used to be two or more are gathered.
Yes.
So, yeah, instead of two or three, which, again, like you said, Cynthia, you would expect to see 3 people churches, 3 people congregations and last I checked, Christians would have called that like Wiccan practice if there was just 3 of them, right?
Thank you. Yeah, that would be a coven, not a church. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, and I could provide like another type of way of looking at this, just to probably give like another angle to the insight. Could it be like we're not really talking about getting together with people, but this is something for within yourself. So you've got the concept of within yourself, you have the feminine aspect and the masculine aspect, and how they can merge together and become balanced, because that's what we all want to do. We want to balance our masculine and our feminine. And then there's the 3 number. 3 in Greek also, it means a perfect amount. Like a 3 in Greek is always like the right amount or the perfect amount. So could the 3rd be our eternal self or our pure source connection? So when the three of those things are gathered within our own body, then we would be in what we call the Christ consciousness field. And it's called the Christ consciousness field, not because it's named after Christ. It's like always been there, but it's like a grid that goes around the earth. That's one of, let's say, currently you could have the grid of love, but the current love is also mixed with fear. So a lot of times you could be in love, but you could also have fear that, let's say it's a relationship, well, that person's going to leave me, or they won't accept me for who I am, or whatever. There's always fear, whether it's business, personal, intimate, family, etc. So another way of looking at this might be, I'm just saying this as for perspective, is what was being said there is like how we could become more of like a trinity within us, having those three aspects within us. And then we can be able to access that. I'll call it the higher, people call it the Christ consciousness grid. I'll call it the higher love grid, like that song by Whitney Houston and Steve Winslow. Bring me a higher love, that song there. So just another way of looking at it. It may not be an actual church or group of people within a church. It could be referring to you as an individual. So I'm going to throw that out there.
Very cool.
And I've also noticed that there's a difference when, what you would think of as like the spirit moving in a church congregation, and the feeling you get in a large group like that is much different than, when I'm just conversing with you guys or in a session, and it's just, there's I think more opportunity for like the Holy Spirit or Christ consciousness to seep through in a conversation when there's two or three people, more than if there's just one person sort of leading a congregation. So I think there is a little bit of revelation of truth there of how much more the Christ can come through in the smaller group. So I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's actually just pointing to the difference in a large group and how the spirit moves in a larger setting and the energy, opposed to in a smaller group where you can have more specific interaction.
While we're discussing this, can I go ahead and get the next slide on screen, please?
Thank you. I was going to suggest that. This is really interesting because when we look at the changes, the Mandela Effect aspect here, there's only one version that there's a channel on YouTube. I want to shout out, give credit to, what does that say? Supernatural Bible Changes on YouTube. And there's a great video there. I just did a screenshot. This one slide shows more, the word more, like where two, now it says where two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. That's how it reads in the King James Version. It's changed across the board to like hundreds of translations, including Greek. And the only exception would be the 2019 Easy Bible version, which still says two or more, which I think is really strange and interesting. Like the Easy version has the residue. Very interesting. And then hundreds of the others just all switched over together. And then we've got the next slide is actually some music. Yeah, I used to sing this song, and this is a class I took in night school and high school so that I could learn to read music. I did have a guitar class in the regular high school, but I wasn't properly getting much instruction. So I thought, well, let me learn how to do the proper chords and everything in a real class. And in part of the class, we did the wedding song. And the wedding song has some amazing reality residue of what I remember about when two or more are gathered. I think we got a clip, so maybe we could play Peter, Paul, and Mary beautifully singing a little bit of this song.
Of your spirits here has caused him to remain, for whenever two or more of you are gathered in his name, there is love. There is love. Well, a man shall leave his mother and...
Yeah, so
Excellent.
that's the part I remember too, definitely. I think that's great how the original was preserved within the lyrics, and I've seen that happen before.
Thank God. Literally. I'm so glad. Yeah, so sometimes that does happen, and what a blessing. That song would not be quite the same if it said whenever two or three of you. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
So thankfully.
And I think the other
Now-
one I'm referring to was Norma Jean's original spelling of her name, and Marilyn Monroe's name is in the Elton John song, spelled correctly. So you can look up those lyrics and see how Norma Jean, we all remember her name being spelled originally within those lyrics.
What is it, Shane?
I think it's got 2 N's now or something. I can't
No, it
remember how it
doesn't.
changed.
What?
Now I have to look this up. Norma Jean?
Yeah, look it up because I can't remember.
Yeah, Chris has been tracking these Marilyn Monroe changes. I remember that showed up. That would be he would have covered that if he'd known about it, right, Chris?
Wait, actually, wait,
Maybe it's a brand new one.
is it Flip Flop?
Oh, this is what's fun about
Wait,
being
there's
live.
a band now, I guess.
Yeah. While we're looking that stuff up, we can see if people in the chat have any memory about this as well.
Oh, it's got an E on the end. That's what it is.
That's what it is. So there's now an E. Yeah, that's weird.
An E at the end of where?
G,
Marilyn Monroe.
Oh,
Jeane. But if
So
you
that-
look up the lyrics of
Rose says, I have heard 2 or more, but always read 2 or 3. Looks like it's
Oh.
only in Matthew, so it would be easier to change than something synoptically attested. I think she just throws big words in there to play with me at this point. But that's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is just that one passage, apparently. Interesting that you remember that it always said 2 or 3. But then why on earth would everybody be doing songs about 2 or more? You know, why?
well, I've noticed that there's
Preachers,
probably
ministers.
people who read the Bible a lot will just overwrite it. I've noticed like sometimes when they will ask the congregation, the people that are reading their Bible all the time, the new way sounds right because you don't think it's going to be, you're not looking for changes when you're reading it. So as soon as you see a change, your brain just automatically overwrites it and says, oh, it's 2 or 3 or whatever. And you won't even remember it, the other way.
However, I was talking with John Kerwin this month about because he was one of the speakers in Connecticut. If you guys should check out the talk he gave. He gave a great presentation, 2023 Connecticut. So check that out for sure. But in my recent conversation with John Kerwin, he said he's frequently talking with ministers, and they are even now, surprised, stunned to find out that it's always the Bible that they have memorized, committed to memory, is now saying whenever 2 or more, 2 or 3, because they say 2 or more. And, there's just tons of examples of that showing up. And that's that video that I showed the screenshot. There's footage of ministers saying to their congregations 2 or more. So it's remarkably common that people say that, even experts. And that's interesting. But that's a good point. Maybe, I don't know.
With these Bible changes, that's something else we find a lot is this excuse that the pastors just preached it this way, or you just heard it this way. It's another way to. So I've heard this enough times that I'm really starting to believe that if they're right, there's a huge conspiracy among pastors to mislead their congregations, right? That's pretty much what it sounded like. All these pastors have gotten together and decided we're going to preach it this way. It doesn't matter what the book said. We're going to say this. And they all went out to their individual churches and did it. That's the only way that their side makes any kind of sense. You still need a conspiracy.
Yeah, you know what, too? This reminds me of like these Bible changes. The other one that's famous is Isaiah 11:6. Lion, will lie down with the lamb. Now the wolf will reside. I was watching the channel called Archaics, the guy named Jason that runs that channel. And he found a Bible from like the 1400s or 1500s. And it had the wolf will reside in the lambs. This is like a Bible like from 600 years ago, 700 years ago that says it. So it just shows how things work. So you can't say all of a sudden, the internet did something and, changed things for us. It's a psyop or something. When you could find like these really, really old reference points to show that we're now in a reality where it's always been this way. So
yeah, that one's changed in the Hebrew as well. Yeah.
It changed. I'm sorry, changed in the Hebrew?
Yeah, as far as Isaiah 11:6, my friend that reads Hebrew actually said it changed in the Torah or whatever the Jewish Bible is. In the original Hebrew,
That's
The
great.
original Hebrew actually
Okay.
changed. So that's kind of my go-to to say like every translation is Isaiah 11:6, because some of them, like, in the beginning, was the heaven and the earth. That's some of them will still say heavens or whatever,
So you can go to a rabbi now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a rabbi would actually remember the lion and the lamb, and now it's always been the wolf. Okay.
And the whole excuse that you're just thinking of Revelation doesn't work because they're not into the New Testament for the Jewish people.
Right.
It's like people saying that the Monopoly man not having the monocle is because people were remembering Mr. Peanut.
Right.
And then they
say, who's Mr. Peanut?
Right.
Yeah, there was that one show in England where they're like, who the heck's Mr. Peanut? Because they don't have that brand.
Yeah.
Oops, that excuse stopped working just all of a sudden.
Right. So I was wrong about Norma Jean. It has now been corrected in all the lyrics. But when I first heard about it, it was actually the E was not on the end when you would look up the lyrics. But now everyone I find, it's all been corrected.
Weird.
Yeah, you could look up Norma Jean Mortensen, Jeane. Yeah.
That might still, stay tuned. It could still flip flop. You never know.
Oh, totally. And everybody
Just
be
give it
arguing for the wrong
time.
side. Yeah.
Well, there's been a lot of new changes aside from flip flops, which are always fascinating. But there's been some body changes, the way I understand it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question for you. I don't know how good you were at science in school, but can you riddle me this? What is the largest organ in the human body? And I must specify that because I know the skin counts as an organ that's on the outside. So to be specific, once again, what is the largest organ within the human body? And we'll wait on a couple of answers from the chat. Personally, I would have said the liver. Honestly.
Yeah. Of course, type in whatever you think without looking it up online.
Autumn Gold says, I guess the lungs. The lungs would be a valid guess. I could see that definitely. Lungs, says Melinda Iverson in. Luisa Diaz says lungs. Well, it looks like I'm outvoted on the liver. Which is fine by me. I'm not 100 on that. That was more so
But the
just
liver used to be smaller. Maybe they don't know it's like huge now.
Yeah, it has gotten bigger.
And it's like 2 parts, you see. It's like,
yeah, those are good guesses.
Yeah.
And actually, I think skin does count. You can call that part of the body. But there's now something that's been discovered. It's a brand new organ, and it's bigger than the skin even. That's
Next slide, please. This is the interstitium or interstitium. I'm not sure how they're pronouncing this right now. The new, as of 2018, largest, newest organ in the human body. It is a thin layer of dense connective tissues throughout the body, sandwiched under the skin and within the middle layer of every visceral organ. I'm going to repeat that middle line. Within the middle layer of every visceral organ. This isn't something they accidentally just found on one little organ somewhere off to the side, right? The bottom of a kidney had this funny little mark. No, we're talking every single organ in the human body contains this. And we just found it. Where extracellular fluid is found is where this is located. So again, they've been doing autopsies, body studies. We're in 2024, ladies and gentlemen. They can tell you the size of your pores on your face, but they're just now finding new human body pieces. Sounds like fascia, says Greenheart. A lot like fascia, but a little different. Cynthia, what do you know about this?
Let's go to the next slide and we can explain a little bit. Yeah, this is fluid related. It reminds me, like in the earth, we've got more water inside the rocks, under the mantle of the earth, just inside the earth itself. There's more water down there than there is on the surface of the earth. Similarly, I think that's what happened here when people were doing autopsies or Even surgery, this medical specialists missed this huge organ because the fluid would drain out of it. That's what they were saying. So this took the combined collaborative work of an endoscopist, David Carr Locke, and working in collaboration with Petros. I can't pronounce the last name, Benias. Anyway, they saw some strange, how do you pronounce that?
Reticular patterns.
Thank you. And you can see it in the picture here, that what we're looking at are these dark bands and what they call untidy shaped bright spaces. And so they consulted with a pathologist. Here's where it gets interesting. So instead of one specialist, it took a collaborative effort between a pathologist and these two endoscopists to recognize that they're looking at something that's been missed for however many hundreds of years. People have been doing autopsies and surgeries. And actually this counts as its own organ system because the fluid is not lymphatic, it's not vascular, so it's not blood related, it's not part of the lymph drainage system, it's its own system. And so it's a dense connective tissue, and that's what had been presumed to be, but actually it's fluid filled structure, and it serves its very own special purpose as shock absorbers. With these are walls around every organ. So I guess you could think of it as fascia. But the thing is, there's something new here that no one's ever seen before, but it's been there the whole time. This is a quote by that medical specialist who was working with the other two, and Neil Thies, saying, we've been missing it all this time. So it's brand new. We've known about fascia for a lot longer than since 2018, I think.
Right.
So this is just next to fascia or part of fascia, or fascia is part of this maybe?
This would be interwoven around the fascia, around the organs, through it all. So it's huge, bigger than skin, because of that.
Interesting. So it's like our own natural bubble wrap around everything.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Shane. So it serves as a shock absorber. And so is this a Mandela effect? Is this something actually new in our bodies?
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
Right.
So if it is, who doesn't want a shock absorber around all your vital organs, et cetera? So to me, you might view this as a type of upgrade.
That's what I'm thinking. Exactly. Yeah. Because I know the official story would be, we just found this. Like, really? You just found this? To me, that's kind of funny. And it took all these experts, like, really? Because I like the quote, there's something new here. No one's ever seen it before, but it's been here the whole time.
So let me get this straight. Something new in reality that has supposedly been there the whole time.
Woo.
No one's ever seen it before. That sounds like the Mandela Effect definition.
Shockingly so, Shane. Shockingly so.
So I wonder if this could actually provide some kind of shielding from EMF or other things that we're not even thinking about.
Thank you. Yeah. Like how is this much more than it looks? I'm sure it is.
It's got to be a deep, wonderful meaning to all of it.
What if this is part of the light body activation? Chris did a great video. I'm slow to catch up, but he did a great Symphony of Realities interview back in March, and it was the Apple, the special episode where you're interviewing
Apple. Yeah.
And in that, I love the part where you're talking about humans evolving into that light body and getting taller, feeling taller, becoming a little transparent, seeing through things. And this could be part of all that. What would we expect to see if we're moving in that direction, that we can start eating less calories, having to kill less plants and animals? What's that going to look like? Maybe this is part of it. So I think we can start expecting to see upgrades, and there's probably a lot more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Melinda Iverson I love this. Cushion with fluid filled is a wonderful update. As we know, water responds to thought and sound. We can help ourselves heal.
And thank you for a big shout out for Melinda's channel on YouTube. She just interviewed Veda Austin talking about consciousness of water. So yeah, that's something, within the body, all these fluid systems that are maybe in a different state of water. We think of water as being just in several states, but it seems like there's more going on. I don't want to scoop the next slide though.
Well, what's really interesting, backing up a little bit in the chat to Senekia.
Yes.
interstitium or interstitium, however you're supposed to pronounce this weirdly written word. Roger from Mud Fossil University, who are interested in the mud fossils out there, was talking about this discovery over a year ago, they say, maybe 2 or more years ago. He says this is also evident in some mud fossils. So once again, if you're into mud fossil, that's over there at Mud Fossil University. Could this be a new discovery official, or could this be maybe a differential of people on timelines? I found this 2 years ago. You just found this yesterday, and it's new to both of us. Could it be something like that? What do you think?
Well, the year on it's 2018, right? So they're saying it's been around longer than
That's
IMEC.
fair.
They're saying it predates our own International Mandela Effect conference, and so officially 2018. But it's new to me. I had not heard of this. So yeah, this is the Mandela Effect also at work. Things come into our awareness at different times. Reality shifts and Mandela effects, like the VW logo and so forth. Some people suddenly see that one, like, oh my gosh, VW logo has done something weird. And others of us, we've seen it for years. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I will still have people randomly tell me there's no way that Jiffy peanut butter didn't exist. I just bought it 2 weeks ago. No, you didn't. At least not in the reality I've been in. You didn't. I promise.
You're like, welcome to Jiff reality.
Right.
You just got here.
And maybe they did. Like,
Yeah,
maybe
you
in
never know.
their reality, they did. Like, and we find this a lot. It's too many times this has happened to just brush it to the side and call it an anomaly of the data at this point, right?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing to all this. There's the type of fluid in this is called interstitial fluid. It's the fluid found in the spaces around cells. It comes from substances that leak out of blood capillaries. It helps bring oxygen and nutrients to cells and to remove waste products from them. So talking about
interstitium, then.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out the naming of this thing. Like you said, you say interstitial fluid, so that must be
interstitial, interstitium and then interstitial fluid. So it just goes back to that concept about fluid. Basically, the base is water. Water is programmable. We have all these energies coming onto the planet. We're actually starting to be reprogrammed in a way. Our avatars are reorganizing, so to speak, becoming something new. So this is just like one more layer to help us understand of all these things that are happening to us as we leave we advance from our carbon-based body to another form of a more crystalline-based body. So these are all like important things to like pick up on and tune into about what's happening to us. And I'm expecting there'll be more body changes coming up. This is not the end of it. So we shall see.
Another stay tuned one for sure.
So
Well,
Greenheart says it's interstitial fluid and interstitium is how to pronounce it. So
Cool.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not good at
I think that's how
pronouncing.
Cynthia was saying it.
Well, it's all new to us. We have an excuse here. It's brand new.
Definitely brand new to me. That is for sure. Next, go ahead.
I took anatomy classes in high school, and of course it wasn't around then, but there was no mention of it. So.
Well, before we get to the next slide, it was new to me probably 2017, 16, 17, when I found that the number of body changes or number of things in my body that I realized were not where I remember them. Now, understand, I'm not just, I read a book in high school and that's where I may or may not be remembering the information from, right? As most would assume, because, most people aren't really delving into this information, rightfully so. My mother was a CNA and I helped my mother learn how to become a CNA. Also, we would discuss different things, and whether I wanted to or not, I ended up learning a lot more about the human body than I would have liked to at some points. But again, I had this knowledge more so than the average Joe Q public, if you will, Gin Pop Joe. So I got a really good idea of where the kidneys are. like you said, with the kidney punch, things like that, kidney stones, kidney issues, back problems, the different medical side of the issues that could lead to that. What, if this is happening, your body's going to feel like that. A lot of things, where the heart is. My father had a lot of heart issues as I was growing up, a number of heart attacks and bypass surgeries. And again, things that I just by chance had become familiar with. And of course, we all know that we all remember the heart being on the left side of the body. We put our hand there to cover our chest with the Pledge of Allegiance. And this was drilled into us as a kid. You put your hand over your heart. Your heart's right here. Your heart's right here. Your heart's right here. And then we found out, oh, no, turns out your heart's right in the middle all of a sudden. Ladies and gentlemen, next slide, please. It turns out that's not the case anymore. Not fully. It's getting kind of weird, folks. The heart twisted in the body. So instead of being straight up and down, it's now sideways with the bottom aiming towards the left. So we're getting back to the left again a little bit. This is super strange. A healthcare worker told me everyone in the field is weirded out about this. Where does this come from, Cynthia?
That was a comment on a YouTube video. So it came in and it seemed worthy of mention, even though we're looking at a Da Vinci illustration on the right. And Da Vinci, of course, that was hundreds of years ago. And to me, the heart location looks like it's matching this twisted, changed version that some people, including some healthcare workers, say looks new to them. But there's a twist. Instead of being straight up and down, the heart seems like it's got some sort of a twist going on to it. And they talked to a healthcare worker who said everyone in the field who's aware of it is weirded out about it. And I think the next slide, there's going to be one slide here. If we go to the next slide, we'll see.
Yeah, I just want to say too, like I never saw it, the heart sideways like that depicted. Like that's totally new. It was always like up and down, like vertical.
This one is a recollection that the heart used to be on the left.
So this picture here, this is a picture that I personally took. Yesterday, I was at work, interestingly enough, and my friend showed up with this shirt on. And I asked him, hey, can I take a picture of your shirt? Because I noticed that the heart is distinctly on the left-hand side. You can find this shirt today at Spencer's gift store, I guess, or whatever it is, Spencer's store. But yeah, I thought this was really amazing residue that you've got the heart distinctly on the left-hand side here, as most of us remember.
I sure do remember on the left. And there's something even weirder. If we go to the next slide, Chris brought this to our attention. This is the weirdest thing of all. I mean, it's right up there. Maybe you can
Chris,
explain.
can you explain to me what in the heck I'm looking at? This looks like a leg in a really, really bad situation that just keeps getting worse. What am I looking at?
Yeah. So basically, it's the whole concept that the heart unravels. So we always
what?
The heart, if you were to do an autopsy or take an actual human heart, it would unravel. We know it as like A in the illustration, and at the very end of it,
with
unravel.
With four chambers, A with 4 chambers to the heart.
It looks like what my wife did to mine. I'm kidding.
And I don't remember hearts being so heart-shaped looking before. If you took the tubes off, that would be pretty heart-shaped on the A one there anyway.
So it's possible to unravel it, unwind the muscle tissue is what they're saying. That is wild.
So the heart is just one great big set of muscle just kind of wrapped around now in a certain...
Right, we've all heard of the chambers, right? But it all seemed like the heart was still kind of a contained, I don't know, having an outer layer or something, not really sort of wound up into the ball that's in or whatever.
Yeah, and then there's another like aspect too for all of this too. Like, so what really is the heart? The heart, is many things. It's also a portal. It's a portal directly to our eternal self. Like that's how we can make that connection. So the heart is like a really special organ in the body. And when we start to learn more about it and it changes its location and changes its orientation, and we come to understand that it actually can unravel and almost look like a tube, so to speak. It just kind of gives us more insights as to what's happening. And it's all about finding our right position within time and space so that our higher self or our eternal self can better communicate and go through us. But it's all through that heart portal with its 40,000 neurons. So, the heart has a brain, right? We've talked about this before. The gut has a brain, etc.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have all of this information coming in, and it's all pieces to the puzzle. And then in time, all of these things together are going to make more and more sense. We get more and more clarity about how this all works together.
We got comments coming in that this is beautiful, and it really is. It's like this is a whole different way to look at the heart.
I'm fascinated. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
I've never seen anything like this either. And it feels like a new dimensional viewpoint, like how to look at our heart in a whole new way and to recognize that things are possible through the heart. This is something that makes us uniquely human too. It's like the reason that we care or find something interesting in the first place, the reason we have curiosity. It feels like we're unwinding and opening up this deeper understanding of who we are and how it is to be human, and what really matters in reality. It's fascinating.
So when I say you're tugging at my heartstrings, that actually makes sense now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
Super cool.
really fascinating information. What a great find, Chris. This is wild.
Very.
So this is something that happens like after death. You said this is an autopsy. This ain't so your heart isn't just going to unfold itself in your body as of right now, right?
No.
As
Obviously
of right now.
No, that's not going to happen. You had a great find too, Jerry. You found something extraordinary.
So I was going to say we have yet another body change. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 3 in a row this go around. It seems we've had a huge upgrade lately. Yes. There's been a new find, ladies and gentlemen, in the brain. Of course, the brain is always fascinating, especially to us here, because the question of consciousness, or the hard question of physics, if you will, which is nothing new, but is something that we tackle here a lot. And that is, is consciousness in the brain, of the brain, or, anything to do with the brain? We can all kind of debate that one way or the other, but the brain itself, ladies and gentlemen, we thought we had it all figured out. We thought we knew what the brain was. We thought we knew how it worked. Next slide, please. Turns out we don't know everything we thought that we knew. The brain is in a constant state of suspended transition between states. So let me put that in a little bit more English for you guys. So let's go to the ice, water, and steam example. We know that ice melts into water or can evaporate into steam from there. But each of these is a different phase: ice to water, water to steam. But if you could lock in the moment between it going from water into steam, right at that moment where it's not quite changed yet, it's in transition, it's in between the water and steam phase. That is the same, or the equivalent in an analogy of where the brain sits. It's in between phases. Well, you might say, what phases, Jerry? Well, what 2 phases could it be between? To which science would say, we don't know. We don't have a way of knowing what 2 phases the brain could be transitioning between, because if it were on either side of the critical point, it wouldn't be a brain, says one of the researchers, Helen Ansell. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the brain is now in a state of phase transition. Well, what do you guys think of this, folks? This is fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's not just the human brain either. The researchers were finding this to be true of all the brains that they were checking, like a rodent, an insect, a human brain. So it seems like there's some magic happening on that transition point. And to me, that it kind of feels right. It has a gut sense of like, this makes so much sense to me, because that's what it seems like. That's where that's where life happens, is right on the edge, like on the shoreline of an ocean and the land. There's just this richness of life forms where the two environments come together. And it seems like the richness always happens right where the phase transition is just imminent. It's just like happening. I've constantly thought of the metaphor of boiling water as symbolically representing, the consciousness itself. That it seems like when we reach an evolutionary shift, when we get new ideas, it is sort of like you're experiencing a whole new state of awareness. So it just feels right. I can't say that there's any proof for it. And like the scientists don't even know what these phases are. Obviously, the brain is not frozen. It's not steaming off. It's not melting. So what's going on? What they're witnessing with the neurons and the patterns is just things are behaving as if they're in that transition phase. And it looks like we're looking at all of these wave functions of reality communicating together.
What do you think about it, Chris?
Okay, well, I think a couple of things that might be kind of a little out there, but I'll just say them anyway. One is that does our brain actually exist unless we can see it, as well as the other organs and internal parts of our body? So there's the whole concept of it's called object permanence, but basically, does something exist in that manner? So in other words, in the way the reality works, let's say you go to your favorite grocery store and you go shopping and so forth, and then you leave and you're the only source player that was there, and then there's no other source players around to observe it. Does that grocery store actually still exist in the reality? Same thing with your brain. Is it actually there until you actually need to see it? With that said, it describes a function of how our avatar works. So if you take the concept of water, what changes it from phase to phase is energy. So when there's less energy, it turns to ice. When there's more energy, it becomes the liquid. And there's even more energy, it becomes the gas. And then there's the other phases of water as well. So could it be that things have been holding our brains, and I guess animal brains as well, in a certain phase? And then when something happens in the environment, whether it's energies or whatever it might be, could that trigger something for our brains to actually change their form? Could we actually go to, I don't know, maybe crystalline or something that we're not even expecting to happen? So I think this is like a really cool mind, literally, no pun intended, but a brain twisting, phase twisting thought. Like is our brain existing in a certain phase and it could go one way or another? So I think this is a great find and a great thing to talk about, because again, it's just adding more pieces to the puzzle. Like, what are we? How do these bodies really work? It's so wonderful. I love it.
And also, I was thinking when you're talking there, Chris, you bring up a lot of good points, and I don't even know where to start on that. Start at the beginning. I must believe that the moon is there even when I'm not looking. Albert Einstein. I don't know. You bring a good point. If it's not looked at, does it exist? That's definitely philosophical.
Yeah, it's philosophical. And to answer that question, you can consider however you want to look at the moon. When I tune into it, I see sometimes a ship, sometimes I see it as a reflection, however that works. So what Einstein was saying is an interesting point, but could the moon itself be a player within the game? So if the moon itself is a player, no matter how you look at it, it would always be there, just like us. If we're source players, we're always creating the environment, and when we're interacting with others, we're co-creating it with others as well. Mm-hmm. So it's the whole concept of what you're actually, who you are and what you're observing. Yeah. So so it goes to that. So there's all these like other advanced levels you can start.
Well, then again, you have to go into defining consciousness and what is and is not conscious, right? This is the discussion that could last for the next 12 hours. Shane and I have had the discussion. It lasted 6 hours when we had it. It was all about a tree.
Yeah, same discussion. Just different
We've talked about this before, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm not even making it up. Am I, Shane? We had a 6-hour discussion about a tree.
Right.
Well, I'll just add one more thing. I mentioned a concept called object permanence, and this is something that babies begin to have. So they say, like, when a baby begins to understand that its teddy bear is always they put it, in their bed in the next room, and then it could go back to it, that teddy bear is still there. They call that object permanence. It's basically the child is learning that things in the environment are permanently there. To me, I see that as being indoctrinated into the matrix, so that we understand how the matrix actually works. So, yeah, so it's an important term used in science and pediatrics and so forth. So
then again, the argument could also be made, Chris, and again, I don't want to get into the 6-hour discussion, but the argument could be made that our consciousness would hold the image of the moon, if you will, the concept, if nothing else, of the moon in our consciousness, to the point that even if we weren't physically viewing it, it's still viewed by our consciousness, ergo it would still be there.
Yeah, well, just the moon, just talking about the moon itself and its new orientation in the sky, with this, it's smiling at us now. What's going on with all that? But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things about the moon and its reality, what it is.
Yeah, I think you've nailed a great part of the point we're making here on the brain conversation, is the consciousness aspect. Could this weird phase transition be why humans are so much different consciously even than all other animals, or everything in the world, considering what you believe do or not do be conscious?
They seem to be evolving with us, if that's the case, because they also, the brains that are studied so far match the same in-between phases dynamic that was noted for human brains. So they're evolving, but that
Could
makes
be a
sense.
requirement for consciousness then in that case.
When we're looking at the entire planet upgrading, this is what Chris covered back in March. If the whole planet, and they were talking about Dolores Cannon and all the, right. Keepers of the garden idea. So obviously, if everybody's upgrading together, plants and animals need to too, of course. So I would expect that. So it makes sense.
Anybody want to add anything else to this? I think it's fascinating myself.
I mean, I could add Isaiah. I could add Isaiah chapter 11. About the lion laying down with the lamb and the wolf residing with the lamb and so forth. Like, could it be there'll be a time when animals are not eating each other? And that whole concept. Could the animals start to evolve as well as the humans do? Because they say only beasts eat beasts. So could it be that we're all going to be rising together, and the animals itself, they're not going to be attacking each other, and they'll be living off other things off the land? I don't know exactly how that would happen, but with the Mandela effect, we know that anything is possible. You wake up one morning and think there's things in your reality that are different.
It feels like we're moving that direction, and I don't think we'll need to eat plants either. Plants are also sentient; they're part of our family tree. So I think the consuming of others, whatever they are, I think that's all going to go away. So that's what I'm expecting. I don't know if we'll see it in our lifetime, but definitely looks like we're headed that direction.
We could be solar powered. Totally.
Yes, light. We are light beings, crystalline light body. Yeah.
I've been wondering about that because I haven't been normal style hungry in quite a while.
Exactly, and
you either.
Yeah, and I have a friend. She was on a 21-day fast. It was designed to end on the day of the solstice, which apparently moved because she had, when you're going to not eat anything for 21 days, what the timing is, believe me. And she'd done a 10-day fast. She succeeded at a 21-day fast she was being coached on a breatharian framework, but still, I mean, the point is, it looks like we're moving to, and now she wants to do that every year, like do the annual. I don't know if she'll stick with it. It's pretty intense, but that looks like the direction we're heading. So it looks like it's getting easier to do that. I'm not hungry very often, or I don't need to eat very much. I am noticing that. I'm not getting sunburned. I'm not getting burned by hot items. We are upgrading real time. I mean, I'm seeing
I wish I could say that. I can't say that one.
Oh, sorry about that. Dang. Well, give it time. It's a process. We're upgrading, so we'll get there.
But it is fascinating to me. If I ate when I was hungry and only when my body told me I was hungry in the last 2 months, I may have ate 5 times.
That's what I'm talking about. See, things are changing. Yeah. And I don't know what people are saying in the chat, if anybody's chiming in on that one, but it's interesting.
Melinda Iverson, in surprisingly enough, says, me neither on the hunger, but not lost weight, feeling more solid. Same.
That's what the person on the 21-day fast said. She said she didn't lose weight, but she was doing pranayamic breathing. So, it's a breatharian approach. You can live on the energy. And to me, it's proving something. It's like we're proving that we're moving into that light body at a level that I've never heard of before. Like, you wouldn't be able to just get people together in a group like this and have several people say, not hungry, don't need to eat, not losing weight, but doing fine.
Right. Well, that's very unlikely.
Right.
Those very specific, especially people who aren't locally, physically located to each other, things like that are spread. Or they have no, kind of like the Mandela Effect or UFO reports or, any kind of paranormal phenomenon when you have people spread across the world giving the exact same report, right?
Yes.
I'm more likely to believe 9 people in 7 states who all told me they seen a round tube-shaped object with lights in the sky who have never met each other before. I don't think they all came up with the same lie at the same time to tell at that moment. Like that's very, very highly unlikely.
That reminds me of our next topic, Jerry.
And what would that be, Cynthia?
Well, actually, I was just thinking about that because we were talking about it uses the example of moving like from water or ice to water in that transitional stage, and that kind of reminds me of the whole idea of the 4th stage or state of matter.
Yes.
That's plasma. Is that new for you guys? Is that because I don't remember? There was 3 states growing up, but I don't know.
Yeah, right. Decades ago, there were 3 states. Now they talk about 4. But let's bring in the next slide because this is definitely where we're going next. The Foo Fighter mystery. Yeah.
To quickly answer your question, Shane, to have it classified as such is new. Plasma being a thing isn't new to me, but have it classified as a 4th state of matter was new.
But officially, is that new? Officially?
Yeah, officially as it being classified as such is new to me, but as far as like plasma being what it is, that's not new to me.
Right.
This next slide talks about the Foo Fighters from, if you remember World War II, there was something called Foo Fighters, and the airline pilots that were flying in, around Europe. This picture was taken in Italy, 1945. You can see 3 images in the picture that are not any aircraft known to humans at that time. So the other airplanes you see in the sky are more typically what you'd expect to see in the dogfights of World War II. So the Foo Fighters, that was a term that was used. And maybe we should go to the next slide because this term apparently came from something I've never heard of. Can't stop laughing about this one. Maybe I should let you read it, Jerry.
Toward the end of World War II, mission updates from the 415th Night Fighter Squadron took a mysterious turn. Along with details of dogfights over the German-occupied Rhine Valley, pilots began reporting inexplicable lights following their aircraft. One night in November 1944, a Bristol Beaufighter crew, pilot Edward Schluter, radar observer Donald J. Myers, and intelligence officer Fred Ringwald was flying along the Rhine north of Strasbourg. They described seeing, quote, 8 to 10 bright orange lights off the left wing, flying through the air at high speed, end quote. Neither the airborne radar nor ground control registered anything nearby. Schluter turned towards the lights and they disappeared, end quote, the report continued. Later, they appeared farther away. The display continued for several minutes and then disappeared. Myers gave these objects a name, taking a nonsense word used by a character in a popular Smokey Stover firefighter cartoon, that word being Foo Fighters. Now, that is not the original or the origin story, the original origin story, I guess, that I remember it being. Now, I understand, you guys must understand, have studied ufology and the paranormal since age 12. I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, but it's been over 30 years of research. Okay, folks, this isn't something I picked up last week and went, oh, what is this? All right. UFO and UAP specifically have been a very, very close study of mine. The term Foo Fighters, Cynthia, do you remember this coming from a children's book?
Definitely not. And I think I would remember something. I know I would remember something like that. I'd be like, oh, let me look into this. Because when I heard about other old cartoons, like what I can't even think of the name now. There's a possum named I can't remember the name, Pokey or something. Well, when you hear about a cartoon in an old like Little Abner or something, then it's like, oh, let me look it up. I've never heard of, what is this, Smokey Stover?
Smokey Stover.
And I know I would have heard about it in reference to the Foo Fighters, because everyone wants to know where the Foo Fighter thing come from. And I heard that's just something that they made up. The fighter pilots came up with that. Nobody mentioned this cartoon book.
So up to the end, everything seemed pretty good. It was a nonsense word. It was made up by a pilot. That's what I remember. But I don't ever remember that pilot having taken it from a kid's book. As a matter of fact, this narrative entered my reality about 6 months ago. Just all of a sudden, out of the blue, that it was come from a kid's book. When all of our lives, it was just something that the pilots just made up because it made no sense. And they were in Asian territory when they first spotted the Foo Fighters. They were over, can't remember, it was Southeast Asia, I want to say. But anyway, they were in Asian territory, so it fit the naming. You know what I mean? It was a Foo Fighter. There was just a nonsense word that they couldn't explain what it was, but it was following them.
Like Kung Fu or something. Yeah,
right.
This is really weird. And Smokey Stover. It seems like there may be a message in the Smokey Stover or the firefighter. There may be something, Mandela effects often bring us a message. I don't know what the message is, but it's interesting. Really interesting.
It's fascinating to me. Could the Foo Fighters, if they are alien, be here to put out the fire that is humanity right now? The dumpster fire that is humanity right now.
Like stopping, like we know for sure that sometimes when UFOs are sighted, that a military, like some sort of a weapons test does not necessarily go through. Like, missiles have not launched. Things have sort of stopped. Nuclear explosions have not gone forward.
Nuclear warheads at the tip of missiles have been turned off and shown on camera that something zipped around them at the time.
So are we getting a clue about the true identity and what's going on? Foo Fighters, firefighters from Smokey Stover. That never, I do not remember any of this.
Stover.
Oh my gosh. Oh
Jacqueline
my gosh.
Klein points this out in the chat. Stover top stuffing. He.
There's totally a message in here for sure. And this has layers to it. So
yeah, because you got Smokey the Bear, Smokey Bear, and then Stover.
Yes.
We can
food.
Yeah, Smokey the Bear is now Smokey Bear. Right. Interesting. There's
and what is fire? Fire is plasma.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
On that
Now
note,
that is going to become important here in a minute.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. So 1952, there was a incredible phenomenon. I would have swore this was 56. I guess it was 52. There was an incredible phenomena in Washington. Of course, the 1947 Roswell incident had occurred. UFO talk is all the rage. There's scientific breakthroughs every day in anti-gravity, and the news cycle was just so much different back then. But there was an incident where a band of lights, of Foo Fighters, if you will, for lack of a better term, was seen going across the White House. This is called the Washington Flap of the 1950s. Go America! America!
Yeah, this is
but It's interesting what we have here because, sorry, I think I had a little internet burp there.
Well, Chris has something to add on this one, I think.
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
So
And pardon me just a moment.
That's okay. So what are these lights that appeared above the White House? There's a lot of different explanations. I believe the U.S. government's Air Force official thing was that they were not solid objects. They're just some kind of an anomaly that appeared. Of course, they would say something like that. Is it possible that there was something more than that going on? So when I tune into it, I'm getting the German vibe going on here. And so there's the whole talk about, it goes back to Operation High Jump, which happened in 1946 and 47, where the U.S. Navy took like 70 ships down to Antarctica, because there's the whole phenomena about how the Germans got a hold of advanced technology. And then something called Operation Paperclip happened, where there are almost like 2,000 German scientists and so forth that got integrated into the U.S. As if they were U.S. citizens the whole time, but they were not. So is it possible that the Foo Fighters and this phenomena that happened over the White House, and this is a still image, but there's actually video of it as well, where you can see them zooming by, were giving a sign to the government, as far as, who really has the advanced technology at that time, flying over the White House in these type of UAPs, as they're called now, or UFOs as we know them, as a sign of like force or dominance. And then, Operation Paperclip happened, and, so forth. And that keeps going on and on. Who actually won World War II? Is World War II still going? Like, what's the whole story with that? So that just adds more to the layers of having lights in the sky that sometimes radar picks up, sometimes it doesn't. And people can actually physically see them, and they know that there's something going on. Is it smoke gas or some kind of other weird atmospheric phenomena? Or is there more to it than that? So I believe, like with this and the Foo Fighters, there's more to it than what the official global narrative tells us. So I don't know if Shane or Cynthia has any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Shane, do you have any thoughts on this one and related to the Mandela Effect and Foo Fighters, Washington, D.C.?
Well, this image looks way clearer than I recall it looking. That's pretty strange.
This is new to me too, especially because I'm seeing that triangle pattern that we saw in the previous slide.
Yeah.
I'd never noticed that before. And when I was in Crestone and we were doing the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, that was the pattern that kept showing up in the sky, was three lights together. That was a frequently observed, something different quality.
Yeah, definitely. That's weird though. Yeah. And so the question is, are they lights? Are they solid? What the heck are they, right?
Yeah, are there who's inside of them? If they're a spacecraft of some kind, who's actually piloting them? How does that technology work? Is that technology real? Is it just made up make believe? That type of a thing. So yeah, so when I tune into it too, like I can sense that I'm getting pilots of the Luftwaffe are actually inside of some of these things as well. So that goes to like another angle as to what is really going on.
Now, when you're saying, yeah, I have a question, Chris. Do you mean that you think that in 1952 those actually were real German controlled craft? Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting. That there was, and there were pilots of the Luftwaffe that actually were able to be trained to use them, and it was like a show of dominance. And in the year 1952, I think that's when Truman was president. In July, then in November, I believe it was Eisenhower that was elected. And then there's all the stories about.
And we know about the treaty and the secret meeting and all of that supposedly occurred with Eisenhower.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what you're suggesting is the technology from Germany moved into the United States around that time?
Not necessarily. They could have been holding it for themselves, like to show their dominance. But, who knows how things progressed? Like, how did the war actually really end? And there's just like so many things that we don't know, because when it comes to history, there's so much that I don't trust. Like, they're just not just how timelines change, but what we're told, like what we're taught, like how much of that can we really trust?
Well, if you know things are changing and constantly, like the history is not fixed, that gives us a different playing field to work with. So then we recognize, yeah, trusting it is an issue, but you can also recognize if we expect things to change, because that's what we're witnessing, then that's normal. That's the real new normal.
Yeah, and Philip K. Dick talked about, he remembered a reality where the Nazis and the Japanese won World War II.
Wow.
So yeah, so we have that going on. We have the Man in the High Castle series that kind of paints that picture, and the advanced technology that Germany had. So how did they get it? You know, so there's just so many unanswered questions, but it's all very thought provoking. It kind of leads us.
So with the timeline, Chris, I'm looking. The war actually ended in 1945. So this would have been 7 years after World
War
II.
One.
Yeah, it would have been.
Wait, we're talking about World War One or World War II?
No, it would have been two. You're right. Two. World War II. You're right. You're right. You're right.
So one of the theories, I think, was that like Hitler fled to Antarctica and maybe developed these, and then came back up to threaten us like years later. Like, so when you say Nazi, do you feel like it was from Antarctica or?
No, I think it was before. I think that they were building them. I don't think they were necessarily building them in Antarctica, but you know, the Germans had so many secret facilities built into mountains and so forth. Yeah, so there's a lot going on.
At that time, they were also already in Argentina and in South America locations, right?
They were known to travel definitely to Argentina as well. And a lot of the missing subs, there's like at least 100 missing subs that they never found. A lot of, you know, the talk is that they actually had gone to Argentina and were bringing people down from there. So from Germany to there.
Well, it appears that the government isn't, and scientists aren't as versed as you are, Chris, because they think they have it figured out.
Yes, they do.
Next slide, please. Turns out the Telegraph posted on February 2nd of this year that we know what the Foo Fighters that buzzed the World War II pilots were. At least they think they know what it was. American scientists, okay, so there's the first problem. They're cocky. American scientists believe they've discovered what these strange, fast-moving blobs that shaped alien conspiracy theories truly were. So, Chris, do you think that they were? Do you think they're going to say? I know what you think they were, and very likely you're right. Do you think they're going to say perhaps it was German?
I kind of highly doubt that, but you never know.
I have a feeling you're right, unfortunately. Turns out that the article is saying that they are, and I want to make sure I don't ruin something coming. Okay, it's not. That they are plasma, ladies and gentlemen. Plasmoids, to be exact. Plasma balls that kind of form and disappear, and we don't really know much about them. We really can't explain them, but this is what we think they are. So that's their explanation, ladies and gentlemen. They've created something that could be a natural phenomena to cover up something that they can't explain.
And they've got pictures of it. If we go to the next slide, you can see some still shots. And this shows some plasmoids, or what they're calling extraterrestrial life in the thermosphere. And there's going to be a video clip next, but let's take a look at just for a minute of this. So they're suggesting that what we commonly call UFOs might be some purposeful behavior and physical morphology. Let's play the clip because it makes more sense.
Hold on. Before we do, I would like to bring up something that I ran across from time to time in my oddity research, something that I kind of brushed off and always called ridiculous. That was the idea of these sky creatures or the flying jellyfish. I know a lot of people have heard of, or yes. These plasmoid creatures that, again, I thought was just absolutely ridiculous and goofy and a step too far even for me. Could be misinformation. You understand, Cynthia, how a lot of that would go. Oh, yes. So it's something that I would kind of brush off to this. And then you have this. This is basically what they are saying, that the people who were saying the plasma jellyfish and all these creatures in the sky that they were claiming that were there.
Yeah, this video clip is a short one, but it's really good because it shows you the voice of a pilot and what they're observing and what's in the air.
Go ahead. The best view we got was through the binoculars, and the best way I can describe it is there's some kind of reflective cloth or with a metallic-looking type of cloth of a structure that's definitely not rigid or it's not a solid metal structure. It started over window 8, then quickly moved towards the nose of the orbiter, and we tracked it through windows 1, 2, 3, 4, and now it's out. What about window 5? It's moving away.
For thousands.
So I know a lot of us in the ufology world have seen that last clip more times than we can count. It shows the bar hanging out there and the white pulsating object going across, and a lot of people would point that and go, look, NASA caught UFOs, look here, look here, look here. But they're now suggesting that these aren't UFOs but plasmoid creatures. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like a life form. If we go to the next slide, there's an actual scientific paper on the next slide showing the abstract for it, which is really tiny print. But basically, you can see from the title of this article and the abstract that they are looking at what they consider to be another way of looking at plasma as a life form. That
Up to a kilometer. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, read it. If you can read it, that'd be great.
Up to a kilometer in size, behaving similarly to multicellular organisms. They've been filmed on 10 separate NASA space shuttle missions over 200 miles above the Earth within the thermosphere. These self-illuminated plasmas are attracted to and may feed on electromagnetic radiation. Ladies and gentlemen, if this doesn't make more and more sense by the minute, they have different morphologies or shapes for those that don't know what that means. Cone, cloud, donut. I'm getting hungry now. Spherical, cylindrical, and have been filmed flying towards and descending from the thermosphere into thunderstorms. Of course, that would be gaining energy. Congregating by hundreds and interacting with satellites, generating electromagnetic activity. So I heard about this a little while back too, where they were having these things that were interacting somehow with the satellites and they couldn't understand it. That sounds familiar. Computerized analysis of flight path trajectories documents these plasmas travel at different velocities from different directions and change their angle of trajectory, making 45, 90, and 180 degree shifts and follow each other. Now, what was that about UFOs that was strange? They would make these sudden 90 degree angles or 45 degree turns that were humanly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's interesting in and of itself. They've been filmed accelerating, slowing down, stopping, congregating, engaging in hunter predatory behavior. This is a clear sign of a organism or creature. Intersecting plasmas leave a plasma dust trail in their wake. Similar lifelike behaviors have been demonstrated by plasmas created experimentally. Because I thought about that myself, getting away from the paper a moment. If you have, like, in a lab, we hear about plasmas being created all the time. Just superheated gas is a plasma, right? That's what we're told, which I'm sure you could validate very easily. I just don't have a bunch of gas to superheat right now, at least not the kind that won't go boom. Plasmas may have been photographed in the 1940s by the World War II pilots, identifying them as Foo Fighters. Repeatedly observed and filmed by astronauts and military pilots, classified as unidentified aerial anomalous phenomena, UAP, or in this case UAAP, because let's just confuse it a little bit more. Plasmas are not biological but may represent a form of pre-life that via the incorporation of elements common in space could result in the synthesis of RNA. And I'm just going to stop right there. And you're more than welcome to read the rest of it on screen if you'd like. I'm not trying to cover anything up. Go ahead. But it does make one wonder. We know that our blood has what they call a plasma in our blood. We also know that blood seems to be the life source, or the life of the body, right? It's what keeps us going and flowing. So it's just really interesting that I agree with them in this particular abstract, in the idea that could plasma be that base writing layer for life that all life is built upon, that the RNA starts with. And I know I'm just kind of repeating stuff now. What do you guys think?
Let's do the next slide, because I want to bring back it's the fourth state of matter slide. And this is what we said earlier. This is from the University of Wisconsin.
Cheers, Wisconsin.
Yeah. So plasmas are often referred to as the fourth state of matter. Now, they say that this is often, but that was not the case decades ago. So I'm agreeing with you, Jerry, on that one. It's new to me. How about you guys, Chris and Shane?
Well, according to Google, it's been around since 1879 as a fourth state of matter.
What?
Excuse me?
What about
That
you?
was announced, a year ago?
Okay, and Chris, what about you?
Yeah, it's definitely newer for me. Like, this concept I've probably heard within 5 years at the most. I'd never heard of this before.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely not in school. There was just, they would always use water as a perfect example,
Let's open it up to the chat too. I see we've got high overprotected. Yeah, anybody that remembers plasma, the fourth state of matter, chime in, because if it's new to you.
Plasma is technically like fire and electricity and all that stuff that you can't, it's not really a water gas or whatever. But what about the plasma within the human body? That typically looks like a yellow liquid. Do you know why they call it
to clarify, that is not the same plasma as we're discussing here. Electrically speaking, you're right, Shane, and that was brought up in the chat. That is two different uses of the same word. But it's interesting, again, you've got different uses of that same word. So I argue that there's a connection there. It just isn't as blatant as we see.
And then getting back to the Foo Fighters and plasma being the full explanation for what they saw with the 3 dots that would be there and then blip, gone, and then they'd come back. I don't think plasma answers that. So I think we still have a mystery.
So do you think there is some sort of plasmoids that they're just trying to say everything is that, but it's really just small?
Looks like there is the plasma life form situation going on, but it looks different than the Foo Fighters. It doesn't seem to match to me.
Yeah, and I'll make a comment too that in one of the last slides it talked about these plasmoids being in the thermosphere. And that's like where NASA took the pictures of them. The thermosphere doesn't start to like at least 50 miles up. So these things are not 50 miles up. Believe me when I tell you. I mean, I don't think they were. So to me, there seems to be a disconnect there. And this is going to sound weird, right? So when I tune into it, I'm getting baby sources. Like what could that actually mean? Because a lot of us have the concept of like source, and then there's the concept of the source within all sources, which is like the big source, but then we're all like little aspects of that, and these are like little baby beginner fractals that are starting their life. So a weird tune in, but I just wanted to mention that.
Nice.
That is definitely fascinating, Chris. I like that. Cynthia, I'm with you on this one. Being a UFO, UAP researcher for a majority of my lifetime, I've never bought the plasmoid explanation. I thought it's about as ridiculous as swamp gas from Venus. I think it's the new version of swamp gas from Venus. Honestly, I think it's it's a more logical than they've ever thrown at us before. I will give them that. It's not as tinfoil hat as most of their explanations are. Yes, I'm talking about the scientists, but I don't see this being viable. Now, Shane, to go with what you were saying, do I think they are conflating two different things together? Absolutely. Could there be plasmoids and something like that exists? 100%. Not a doubt in my mind that could definitely be a thing. It probably is a thing. without having looked at it with my own two eyes. Of course, I can't say, yep, that exists, but yeah, I would definitely buy that. Now, I think they're conflating that with UFOs. I don't think those are UFO cases. Maybe one or two, maybe one or two. Sure. A light in the sky you can't understand. A plasma came a little lower than normal. Fine. But I don't see this being a viable explanation for a UFO that comes so close, lower than an airplane, right? Like we don't see examples of that in normal life. We've seen ball lightning, which is considered a ground plasma, but even that doesn't jump up into the sky and fly around like these UFOs and Foo Fighters, right?
Right.
So yeah, I've always thought that to be a very stupid and goofy explanation for UFOs, though a little more logical than the swamp gas and other goofy ones they threw at us. And that's my diatribe on that.
So maybe it's time to ask people to put some questions in the chat. I think we got a slide for that reminder, right?
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a question of the panelists so far about anything we have talked about, perhaps you got a question about the conference coming up. If you got questions for this team, ladies and gentlemen, please go ahead and put them in the chat now. We have been monitoring the whole show. I haven't seen any pop up that haven't been addressed, at least. So if you have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, now's your time. Just make sure you preface it with the word question. That way we'll know that you are meaning to ask it to us directly and not just another person in the chat. We don't want to be answering what you're asking, overprotected over here when you're actually talking to her, not us. OP, good to see you, by the way. Always a pleasure. She was at the 2019 conference with us.
Yeah.
An amazing person. So glad to see you here. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, moving to the next slide, we have something near and dear to my heart. Not the pangolin, but the fact that the pangolin is a Lazarus animal. Though some call the pangolin themselves a Mandela Effect, a mandanimal in and of itself. But the mandanimal's been mandanimaled again, ladies and gentlemen. The Lazarus giant pangolin has been recognized as extinct in the country of Senegal for decades. The pangolin means one who rolls up. And this animal was photographed, ladies and gentlemen, on March 8th, 2023 at 1:37 a.m. walking along a dry riverbed. So for decades, this animal has been gone.
And now it occurs to me, this is rolling up and we've got the heart unrolling, and there's something going on with rolling. So that's interesting today too. Seems
Definitely a theme we've seen.
Yeah.
And this is yet another of the Lazarus creatures. We've seen these so much more than I ever would have considered. Right? Like you would think this is just a rare occasion, maybe one or two a year. Creatures just don't come back from the dead like that. But do they, Cynthia?
Well, I'm just getting this big flash of unrolling, and it's a dimensional upgrade. If you start with a singular point and it's like one dot, a photon, for example, quantum particle, it's got no dimensionality, just one dimensional. 2 dimensions is like a flat plane. So it's like you're unrolling. And then 3 dimensions, you're getting more volume. So we are unrolling. And I think that's the heart message and the pangolin message. It's like, are you guys ready to unroll into higher dimensional existence? That's totally an upgrade. So yeah, but back to the pangolin. Wow. I'm amazed. It's back. Another giant animal. It's not the miniature pangolin. This would be the big one, just like when we saw that giant tortoise come back from extinction.
Right.
Where are these guys hiding?
How do you miss something like that?
Right.
How do you miss a 900-pound elephant? Oh, we just didn't see him. Sorry.
Yeah.
What?
I love it.
And what's really interesting is our next slide here. We might even be in a new galaxy, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I say that facetiously. The Lazarus mini galaxy flowers. So a Lazarus, once again, thought to be extinct. Now, this one makes a little more sense This flower, ladies and gentlemen, can only blossom in South Africa in August when it rains, and then only for a few hours. So to say this is a rare flower to begin with is an understatement. I could see why this was considered to be maybe not existing anymore because, well, it probably didn't rain for a couple of years. But again, Lazarus species, the mini galaxy flower of all the names. What do you guys think of this?
Love it. It's sort of reminds me of what Chris was saying about the, the hit he was getting on the plasma beings. It seems like they're celestial. They do seem like they're an indication of our own divinity and just that the awareness of the specialness of each moment.
Yeah, and I'll mention too, I'll just throw in Dolores Cannon. She had this book, a series, I think it's 3 parts, called The Convoluted Universe.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about, like, as we're getting into New Earth, we're going to start to see animals we haven't seen before, plants and so forth, and foods and so forth, like the custard apple and so forth.
Yep.
So, yeah, this is just like, we always talk about these mandanimals because we feel that they actually have an importance to show us what's going on in the reality. So I'm always appreciative to hear about this. And the giant pangolin, they can weigh up to almost 100 pounds. So how do you miss that, right?
Where do you hide them?
Yeah, where do you hide? Like, the average was 66 to 88 pounds for one of these giant pangolins. So yeah, it's not easy to hide them. So to me, it seems pretty clear evidence that we're in a timeline where they never went extinct.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah, besides all the other interesting creatures that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And what you were saying just reminds me of, the custard apples, Chris. You remember that Dolores Cannon came out in her book, and now we have them, and it's like, what? So, yeah, totally agree with you.
Exactly. Yeah, there's this YouTube channel. I think it's called Fit Shorty. It's like this smaller guy who's very fit, and he just talks about all of these discoveries of new, like, fruits that he's made. And I swear he's got like so many videos, at least 100 videos of he's like, this is the most delicious fruit I've ever had. And he opens it and I'm like, I've never seen this before. So he travels all over the world and reports on this, but it's a really cool channel to show you like all the possibilities for foods we might be eating in the future, might be gaining nutrition from. So yeah, it's just like, as we're advancing, all these things are becoming just more and more beautiful and amazing.
When we need to eat on those rare occasions.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. When we have an appetite.
It's almost like we're heading to a new era, a new time.
Yes.
Didn't the ancient prophecies speak a lot about this, Cynthia?
They did. They spoke, the Hopis talked about the return of the long extinct. They didn't use the word extinct, but animals and plants that had been gone will be coming back. They also had a prophecy of the white buffalo calf, and they have a prophecy of the white buffalo calf maiden who brought the peace pipe and tobacco down to the people of the earth when she brought her white tobacco with the message of joining together to communicate with peace, with love, with understanding. And that's the pipe ceremony that the Lakota and many other tribes respect and really appreciate. When she vanished, she turned into a white buffalo calf. And it was said that when the white buffalo calf returns, that we are, and when it's born in the wild, which just happened a few days ago, this month, for the first time in Yellowstone, we have a genuine white buffalo calf. The naming ceremony is right now, today. The Lakota are meeting.
Now, if I may jump in here real quick, I know you got a lot of people right now out there in the audience saying, wait, you guys have said this before. You've covered 4 or 5 of these things now.
No.
And they'd be right. We have covered a number of these. But what makes this one different, Cynthia?
This one is born to a wild herd of these buffalo. And so this is what's astonishing. It's the first one born in Yellowstone, the first one born to a wild herd of bison. And it's not just, doesn't have pink eyes. We frequently talk about Lucianism being a genuine white animal. And this is a genuinely white buffalo calf with the black hooves, the black nose, the black eyes, not pink nose. So it's not an albino. And therefore, this is the long prophesied white buffalo calf return.
And the Lakota have validated that statement, correct?
That's right. They are having a special sacred naming ceremony, which is officially honoring this particular white buffalo calf today. And the name is not being bandied about. It's not being publicized because I believe it's a sacred name. Now, we'll probably get our own nickname for it. People could, in the chat, indicate what they'd like to call it. It'll get other names, but the sacred name given to it by the indigenous First Nations peoples, that's not been publicized yet.
I vote we call it Mandela calf. Maybe I'm being overzealous on that one. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The white buffalo calf prophecy, according to the Lakota themselves, has been fulfilled as of June 4th, 2024. What does this mean for humanity? What does this mean for mankind? Only time will tell. We hope it's a golden timeline. We believe that we're headed towards something absolutely amazing, wonderful, and incredible for all of humanity.
How
Something
good can it get?
Extremely positive, like Cynthia just said. How good can it get? And I think it's that idea we need to keep in all of our minds. We've mentioned Dolores Cannon just a couple moments ago. Dolores talked about the two earths. And once again, a difference, a splitting, a new reality. Whatever the case may be, there's enough evidence now for me to honestly and courageously say that we are here. We are at the point of entering this new reality for whatever it may be. And questions, ladies and gentlemen, it is question time. We have a couple of them in the chat here. Ariana Elise says, I could find the question. Here it, that's so cool. Here it is.
Atsuko.
Apologies.
No problem.
Thank you, producer Heather. You found it at the same time I did. How do you remember eclipses working in the past if the moon only came out at night? As far as I know, right now in this reality, a solar eclipse happens only at the time of the new moon when the sun and moon are both lined up, she says. So how do you guys remember eclipses working in the past?
I've actually got to dip out on this one, you guys, but I'll just say really quick that that's not one that affects me with the moon in the daytime. I remember the moon in the daytime. I think I'm a little different than everybody on that.
I'm with you. I remember it popping out at different times while the sun was out. Now, it wasn't like middle of noon, but it was still out during daytime.
Yeah.
I remember that too. So that's not one that affects me personally either. How about you, Chris?
For a while, I remember the moon coming out during the day, which when I first noticed it, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I was like, the moon, it's daylight. But yeah, so it's definitely an interesting question, because could there be something to with the orientation of a new moon so that it could cause a solar eclipse? But yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that one.
And with the new size of the Earth and all that we've found, just Mandela wise, like it really brings into question. I don't know. Like you guys said, I remember it kind of being out in the daytime. Like, again, you wouldn't find it at noon right next to the sun, right? It ain't going to be up there hanging out together, but like 3 p.m. or maybe up to like 9 or 10 a.m. Like for it to be kind of hanging out of the edge of the sky wasn't exactly like abnormal. It wasn't every day, but it wasn't completely abnormal either. Now I'm just rambling. Next question. Go ahead.
It also comes down to what is the moon. So that's a whole other conversation as well. Solar eclipses have always happened, right? For hundreds, thousands of years, there's reports of solar eclipses. So the thing is what is the moon that's actually able to hide that part of the sun? So that's.
And how are the sun, moon, and earth in such a way that it only would work
A super cosmic coincidence.
Because we get solar eclipses and lunar eclipses. So
And lunar eclipses.
We get both.
And the moon's the exact size, distance from the
Correct.
Earth to hide the sun completely. Yeah.
Because the moon compared to the sun is a rock compared to a golf or a soccer ball, right? Like it's a huge difference, but they completely cover each other up with the differential of the space. Yes.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly at that. Yeah. What are the odds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's highly unlikely.
Could the moon be the backside of the sun as it reflects off the ionosphere? Could the moon be a ship? Could the moon could be so many different things. So
Listen up, flat earthers. There's your new concept right there. The moon is the backside of the sun. They're connected by a tube. Give it 2 months. That's going to be a thing. I'm kidding. Asuko says, question. I'm experiencing local Mandela effects almost weekly. Buildings appear overnight, etc. How do you define the difference of Mandela effect and timeline shifts? I would argue there isn't one, but Cynthia, are we talking semantics here?
Yeah, to me, those are pretty interchangeable concepts. And the Mandela effect would be a group of people. I think that would be definitive, like people generally agree. Unless it's a personal Mandela effect, and then that's your exclusion, your exception, then it would be just the one person. Timeline shifts typically would be presumed to be for an individual. So that would be the main distinction in the terminology, but they're pretty much talking about the same phenomenon as far as I know. How about you, Chris?
yes, I would want to say congratulations, Asuko, because your frequency is really rising, especially when you see on an almost overnight daily basis. I know, like when I woke up this morning, there's this eye mask. I was telling the guys before, there's this eye mask that I wear. It's like heated so that it helps my like tear ducts, which is another situation. When I bought it, it was a dark color. It was like a navy blue, almost a black. I woke up this morning and it was gray. And I'm like, no, it wasn't this light gray color. It was a dark color. So yeah, so a lot of us are starting to feel these effects, and they become what we call them personal Mandela effects, but it's just showing that we're vibrating at a different level. We're going up as the earth is vibrating at her level. Schumann resonance is a sign of that, etc. We're all vibrating up there, and we're experiencing basically a new reality. So very similar, but different. And because we have that ability to see that, other people, may not, they wouldn't see that, but because we're so observant of the reality now, these things just like jump right out at us. So that's great.
And what I would answer this question is to say a Mandela effect would be the evidence of a timeline shift. That's the way I see it. A shift has occurred, and that's basically what a base concept of the Mandela effect, right? A shift has occurred. Now, something in reality is different than what I remember it, or this multitude of things all of a sudden are different than what I remember them. So I think one is evidence of the other, in my opinion.
So the timeline shift would be the verb, the action. The Mandela effect is the result, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Yeah, I say Mandela effects are like Easter eggs in a video game. They're hints and wonderful surprises that we have experienced a timeline shift. So I'll leave
And last question before we move on to our mailbag question. Sorry, Chris, I wasn't trying to cut you off there.
That's okay.
Last question before we hit our mailbag question from Luisa Diaz says, I think this is fascinating, guys. Do you guys think that eating ME foods, mandatables, oh, the language we are creating, I love it. Mandatables, such as Romanesco broccoli and custard apples, helps us in the evolution into the golden age process. Wow. I'm going to take first swing in this and say, I don't know, but I find it an incredible theorem to follow.
Yeah, the grocery store is an interesting place because there are so many examples of Mandela effects there. So many foods. We got the Haas avocados and all kinds of things. But I'd say it can't hurt, is what I'd say. might help. What do you think, Chris? You're the food
Well,
expert.
at first I was frightened when I saw this because I thought she was saying eating mandanimals.
Oh.
No, eating the mandanimals is not good. We're not going to do that. But yeah, I think those foods are there for for a reason. So especially if you try them and you like them and they taste good,
Yeah.
keep going, and they're good for your body. Absolutely.
Mandedibles. I don't know how well that word's going to catch on. I'm warning you now. I don't think that one's going to go, but
It might. Man, edibles.
Cynthia, anything you'd like to add to this?
No, it's a great question. Love it.
All right, and next question is coming to us from our mailbag. So let's go ahead and throw that back on the screen here. From the mailbag says, do you think, now this is another one that's really going to make you guys think, do you think a vision impaired person would have the same effect on the double slit experiment? I mean, it must, but it's always communicated in a way that applies the necessity of seeing. And this comes from Ep Joseph C. So again, fascinating question because it's something that I would have never considered. Cynthia, your take on this as the resident scientist.
Yeah, I love the question. And this is a great one because usually the double slit experiment is that most elegant classical experiment in all of science with the particle emitter, the double slits in a screen, and then the screen in the background. So it's just like three pieces of physical equipment and then the observer watching. And you're right. Usually if you've got a particle detector in one of the slits, then you get a different outcome on the final screen. But I'm sure you could create a screen that would be like tactile. So just like we can create things that will show things visually, as get a visual result. I'm sure you could create a photographic plate that would end up with braille, so you can feel to the touch that kind of an interference diffraction pattern that's the hallmark of the double slit experiment, when you've got one photon at a time interfering with itself through the two slits, as long as you're not putting a particle detector in one of the two slits. So I'm sure that it could be constructed in such a way that a blind person could feel that interference pattern, like the diffraction pattern of two pebbles landing in a pond with their waves constructively.
Well, the question would be, though, what pattern would emerge from the vision impaired person, quote, seeing or not seeing it? Does consciousness or does the visual act have a functionality here?
It's consciousness, and we can set the experiment up to map to almost any of our senses. I'm sure of it. So, but it's going to be consciousness driven, clearly. And it's the positioning of the observational device that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I agree with Cynthia, and I'll go just one step further. That sight is just one of our five senses. There's other senses that we explore the world around us, and I actually believe there's going to be more senses coming online. We were talking about a sixth sense, and I think there's even more that we're not even aware of that are going to start happening to us. And then, like, what really is sight? Are we talking about the sight with our eyes? There's also the concept of seeing with our third eye, with our pineal gland. That's another type of sight that some people have been able to really hone and be able to see into the next level, into the unseen. So, yeah. So to answer the question is, I think that it doesn't matter if you're blind or not, as long as your consciousness observing through your bubble of reality and you're co-creating with others, that it's the same thing as a double slit experiment.
I would take this one level further, and I would ask what a vision impaired or even a healthy human with their eyes closed, acting as the screen, would see. I mean, the photons would penetrate the skin to a degree. You would still see the light burst. As we know in space, astronauts deal with the light burst phenomenon all the time from solar rays and solar activity and charged particles, things of that nature.
Right.
It makes one wonder if I became the screen, what would I view of the photons? Because would my consciousness change how they come out, or would yeah, that's fascinating. That really got my head going there. I've got to think that one out a little further. But what would I see? What would my view be as the screen? Something to think about, ladies and gentlemen. And I believe that is it for our questions. And I believe that is everything we have for the episode itself. But we do have some very special thank yous to give out, ladies and gentlemen. Our IMEC folks, you guys have been so very gracious, so very amazing. It's thanks to all of you that we're able to put on so many events, to do so many things, to spend the time out of our day to do these events, to go across country, to rent hotels and conference rooms, and all the fun things we do for you guys on a regular basis that we love to do for you guys. But a lot of that takes money. Unfortunately, in this society, that's the way it's set up. I hate it too, I know. But the Patreons have really helped us with that, ladies and gentlemen. It is not very much at all. You can hop on over to Patreon, become a member for, what is it, $444, $11.11, and $7.77. Isn't that right, Chris?
Sounds right.
I believe those are the three tiers. So very cheap, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to just help us out, you're helping out a great cause, something that we've been working on for 4 or 5 years now, trying to put on conferences for you guys and do everything we can. So yeah, special thank you and huge shout out. Make sure you hit that QR code right there on our screen. It's going to take you directly to the Patreon to sign up, just like all of these amazing people have here. The gold level has been with us for over a year. We have Jody. We have Colleen Learley, Stephanie Clay, James, JD Peterson. I seen JD earlier in the chat. Shout out to JD Peterson. Paul Ellis, Bo Kim. I must stop right here and give a huge shout out to Bo Kim, who has for a number of years in a row been our top donor so far. So thank you so much, Bo. We really, really sincerely appreciate everything you do to help us out here. Allison Eastman, Gail Brown, Teresa Richards, Belinda Enders, and Lori Glasner. I'm just waiting for one day her to come up to me and tell me I've been saying her name wrong the entire time. Silver level, over 6 months. Laura Bortman, JoJo Williams has moved up from the bronze to the silver level. Vit Hartman, go Merca. Leslie Henderson, Laura Monson, Kathleen Wright, William, Sylvia Bondurant, Ann Gaynor, and Lene Harlia. And our bronze level, our newcomers, Andrew Christie, Karen Kite, and Kathleen Downing. Another huge shout out, Kathleen Downing, a person we've had a number of email conversations with on the backside. We appreciate all of you guys so very, very much. Once again, these are our sponsors that have been with us for a year or more. If you want to become one of those sponsors, ladies and gentlemen, easy to do. All you got to do is click that QR code right there, or even go manually to patreon.com/IMEC. IMEC, ladies and gentlemen, IMEC. Very easy to do. Again, we have $4, $7, $11 tiers. Nothing outrageous at all. Every month we put out a green room episode where we meet before this very show and we have incredible discussions that would probably, well, let's be honest, would not be allowed on YouTube. That's kind of the whole point of those discussions. So those discussions are only available for our Patreon members, the Green Room specials. Make sure that you do check each one of them out. Doesn't matter what level you're on. If you're a Patreon member, you get to see those Green Room discussions. And today's was no different. Today's was an incredible discussion, ladies and gentlemen, on thinking, and I'm trying to remember what else we discussed.
Mysterious monoliths.
Oh, that's right. The mysterious monolith mysteries. So all that and more, ladies and gentlemen, patreon.com. And do not forget also, folks, if you enjoyed this show, if you would like to see a show like this live and in person, well, you're going to have your chance this year in Nashville, Tennessee. Next slide, please. The 2024 4th Annual International Mandela Effect Conference. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, coming up, Nashville, Tennessee. Tickets are on sale now. We are working with a number of great speakers to bring forward for you guys. We've still got a little bit of work to do on the back side before we can give a lot of those names out. I can tell you, for those that are interested in the Crazies Lab channel, we have him as a possible speaker, as well as a number of others. So do make sure that you buy your tickets now, because they will sell out fast, folks. We've only got 300 seats, and those 300 seats are going to go before you even know it. Make sure you get yours today. We will have a longer list of speakers coming out as we get nearer and nearer to the event. QR code right there is going to take you to our ticket sales. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a Patreon member, that QR code right there is going to take you to a place where you can get $25 off, not just your ticket, but your guest, your +1 ticket also. So that's a $50 savings right there, ladies and gentlemen. Do make sure you take that offer. That is for our Patreon members only. You will have to submit your name. We will validate your name against our Patreon members. Just so you're aware, we do have a process in place for that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking for tickets, only buy tickets from IMEC.world. And the reason I say this is last time we had an issue with people trying to sell tickets that weren't even real. So watch out for scammers. People will scam you for anything nowadays. If you want to make sure your name is on the list and you have your official ticket, make sure you go to imec.world, IMEC.WORLD, imec.world. Amazing conference coming up this year, ladies and gentlemen. Next slide, please. In Nashville. Next slide, please. There we go. This real pictures, ladies and gentlemen, of the hotel that we are going to be having our conference in this year in Nashville. It's a beautiful place. I've personally went down there and seen it. It is absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait. I think it's amazing. It's a Hilton. What more can you ask for? It's a Hilton. You know it's going to be amazing. Again, tickets on sale now, imec.world. And if you have somebody you would like to see as a speaker, send them our way, imec.world. You can also find the speaker application, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to be a speaker for the IMEC conference coming up, let us know. If you know somebody that wants to be a speaker for the conference coming up, let us know. We can reach out to them, or you can reach out to them. We want to hear who you want to hear. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, once again, Nashville, Tennessee, November 7th through the 10th, 2024. Next slide, please. Mark your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. We have the rest of the shows for the year leading up to the conference. July 31st, 2024. July 31st, 2024 will be the next IMEC Open Tables, followed by August 28th, 2024. All of these will be on a Wednesday, of course, August 28th, 2024. And last but not least, Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. Each one of these days will be the IMEC Open Tables show here on YouTube, of course, and our Patreons on Patreon. Mark your calendar, July 31st, August 28th, and September 25th. We will be taking off in October ladies and gentlemen, because we have the conference in November. So there will not be an open tables for October as we are preparing for the huge event coming up in November. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to once again have been joined by my incredible team of friends here. Shane Robinson, unbiased and on the fence, who is not with us at this point. He's had to step away. We really love and appreciate Shane. Christopher Anatra, you know him as the quantum businessman. Chris, thanks so much for being here, sir. Do you have any trips planned this month?
No, nothing concrete. By this month, I'm imagining you mean July, but yeah.
Yes.
No.
This coming month. But before we meet again, that way people can know to keep you in their prayers and thoughts for safety, sir. And of course, Cynthia Sue Larson of Reality Shifters.
Yes.
Cynthia, I hope you have a great and amazing month. Chris, the same to you, sir. Consciousness Watch, last minute drop, ladies and gentlemen. Consciousness Watch with a 1999 super sticker. Holding the trophy. Look at you now. We appreciate you so much. Ariana Elise just became a 1111 member over on Patreon also. So huge shout out to both you guys. Thank you so very much. Consciousness Watch once again with a $20 super sticker. That is absolutely awesome. Right at the last minute too. That is awesome. On behalf of Shane Robinson, Christopher Anatra, Cynthia Sue Larson, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. Together, we are the International Mandela Effect Conference. And remember, until next we meet, ladies and gentlemen, together we go. Together
we grow.
We grow. Bye, everybody. Love you guys.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.